I decided to go ahead and record this show during the Bucks-Panthers game because, well, I would much rather have mono than watch Thursday Night Football. Is it too soon for that? Let's talk about the top 20 quarterbacks for Week 2. Hey, what's going on, Headliner Nation? Thanks so much for tuning in to the Fantasy Headliners. Kyle coming to you from the Draft.com studios. And we've got our quick run through on the top 20 quarterbacks for Week 2 here for fantasy football purposes. You know how we do it here on Headliner Nation. We give you game-by-game breakdowns, and we give you the rankings as well. Well, we're going to run through these here pretty quickly. Won't spend a ton of time on the rankings, just some final thoughts before you set your lineup on Sunday. Now, just so you know, I have not included either Cam Newton or Jameis Winston in these rankings because by the time this video drops, they will have already played. So moving forward on Sunday, these are the guys to choose from. These are the ones that you should have in your lineup, maybe on your bench. We'll talk about the rankings and move forward. Let's jump into it. Week 2 rankings at quarterback. All right, there at the very top, every time, more than likely, is going to be Patrick Mahomes this season. Coming in at number 1, his counterpart from their game this weekend, Kansas City at Oakland, Derek Carr coming in at number 18 for me. This is a game that could go back and forth. The one thing I will say is that the Oakland Raiders as a whole surprised a lot of people this past week. The defense looked really good. Carr looked a lot better than a lot of people anticipated. He was one of our buy low, late quarterback strategy players this year. So if you bought into him and you have him on your lineup this week or have him on your team this week, you can go ahead and put him in your lineup. This is probably going to be a back and forth game. More than likely, the Kansas City Chiefs will still pull out in front of the Oakland Raiders, and they're going to be playing from behind. Patrick Mahomes will get the job done. Derek Carr will go ahead and come in and have to work through some of that, have to play catch up a little bit. That's all right, though, for fantasy football purposes. That's what we need sometimes. A negative game script for Derek Carr is going to help you out. Both of those guys coming in at 1 and 18 for me can be in your lineups this week. My second ranked quarterback, Lamar Jackson. Now, he was my third ranked quarterback last week, and I got a little bit of grief from some of you. You thought that was way too high. Well, he showed up and he showed out just like we anticipated. Excellent week for him. And this is going to be a great matchup of two of the younger quarterbacks, more of the dynamic quarterbacks in the league. Lamar Jackson, my number 2 quarterback this week. Kyler Murray coming in at number 20 for me. Now, Kyler Murray, I might be a little low on. However, let me explain this one here real quick. He did not look good for 3 quarters of football last week. It took him until the end of the game to really get going. There in the 4th quarter, was able to come through. The kid is good. He's going to be good. However, this is an offense that lacks a very good offensive line. He's learning a new playbook. The whole entire offense is learning a new playbook, and they are going hurry up as fast as possible. For him to begin his career, that could lead to a lot of inconsistencies. And because he has to face Baltimore on the road this week, this could become a problem in a stadium which will be a little bit more on the loud side against a good defense. So I think we're going to see some more of those inconsistencies, and that's why I have him down at 20. Again, even though I'm a Detroit Lions fan, I'm not buying into that defense this year. It won't be great, but it's not going to be awful. But it's really going to be somewhere in the middle, towards the back a little bit, back third of the league. So with all that being said, Kyler Murray struggled a little bit last week. What's he going to get on the road against Baltimore this week? That's why I've got him at 20. I have him as a sit this week, but if you don't have any better options, you can try to throw him out there. Don't go dropping him to stream anybody, but if you have an open roster spot that you could grab someone else listed here above him, I would stream this week. My number 3 quarterback has an 18.5-point spread at Miami this week. And we saw it last week with Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. They completely tore Miami apart. Expect a lot of the same. Not a whole lot to say here about Tom Brady. He's going to get his work in. Even if he were to play 3 quarters of football and sit out the 3rd quarter, it could possibly happen. It doesn't matter. He's going to get his points. He's going to get them early. He's going to get them often. But I really don't see the New England Patriots letting up off the throttle in this game. They're going to go in to Miami. They're going to win this game. They're going to win it in sizable fashion, and they're going to walk out of there. I don't think that they're going to sit a whole lot of people. Yeah, the running backs I might be worried about, but Tom Brady I'm not. He's going to play. He's going to dominate. Put him in your lineup. He's going to get you a lot of points this week. Number 4, Dak Prescott had the huge week last week. He was a top quarterback option for me heading into this season. He was a QB1 in all of my rankings to start the year. Really, really, really liked Dak Prescott. And so far, so good. Now, things could change, obviously, but I'm going to continue to buy him this week at Washington. You're not going to see Case Keenum here in the top 20. I do have Keenum as a sit this week, even though that offense played very well last week. I'm not going to trust Case Keenum this week. Dak Prescott's going to show out, though. This offense is going to fire on all cylinders. Really excited to see the run-pass options that they have going on with the team right now. It's making Dak very dangerous. He's going to continue to play well. This is still a defense that's going to be more than prone to giving up some big plays. Dak's going to be right there at the beginning of that, throwing to Amari Cooper or Gallup or Randall Cobb or whoever, Zeke. Everybody played well last week for the Dallas Cowboys, so I expect a lot of the same this week. Prescott is a top option in week 2. All right, the number 5 and number 6 quarterbacks in this week's rankings are going to be playing each other this week. Drew Brees, Jared Goff should be more than enough points this week. Drew Brees took him a little bit to get going last week at home against the Houston Texans, but finally showed up there in the second half, played extremely well. Jared Goff did not have a great week last week either. However, I expect both of those guys, especially Jared Goff. Jared Goff is going to bounce back. Drew Brees is going to be just as good as he was last week. This has all the makings. It's not going to be the Kansas City Rams not Kansas City Rams. I said that weird. It's not going to be the Kansas City Los Angeles Rams matchup that we saw last year, but it has a lot of the makings for another big back and forth game. These two teams swapping blows, touchdowns, lots of yards, lots of plays. Both of these guys are top 10 options. And honestly, if it weren't for the 4 guys ahead of Jared Goff having excellent matchups as well, Jared Goff would be a top 5 quarterback. But either of these guys, your quarterback 1 this week, you'll get more than enough points. Deshaun Watson looked excellent in week 1 on the road in New Orleans, led almost a game-winning drive. But Drew Brees had other plans for him, and the New Orleans Saints walked away with that win. However, this week, I am going to just back up just a little bit. Jacksonville is going to be a little bit more of a tougher matchup. Patrick Mahomes did more than well against them last week. However, with Deshaun Watson this week, I'm just going to have him back here at 7. I don't think he has a bad start by any means whatsoever. However, there could be some limited upside. So just keep that in mind when you start him. Limited upside this week. He's still going to score. He's still going to do well. However, the ceiling that he typically has isn't going to be this week, facing a little bit better of a defense. And maybe that defensive line is going to get into the backfield a little bit more than what we would like to see. Hopefully they can keep him protected this week. We do not want him leaving week 2 with any injuries, but still play him. Still feel more than confident that he's going to help you get a dub this week. 2 more quarterbacks playing in the same game right next to each other, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, and much like I said with Brees and Goff, these guys are going to be trading blows all night on Sunday Night Football. Wentz at number 8, Ryan at number 9 this week. Now, I know Matt Ryan, when I talked about that game with the Minnesota Vikings last week, I expected a lot of back and forth there. It just didn't happen. The Vikings defense showed up and played extremely well, and they controlled the ball on the ground and really tried to keep it away from the Atlanta Falcons as much as possible. It was just such a positive game flow for the Minnesota Vikings. Atlanta couldn't overcome it. This week at home, their home opener against Philadelphia, they're going to play well this week. Both of these teams are going to play well. Both of these quarterbacks have a lot of upside this week. Again, if it weren't for some guys above them, they'd probably be a little bit higher. Deshaun Watson, I have just a little bit higher. But with that being said, Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan locked into the top 10 this week. Put them in your lineup. Feel safe about it. Now, last week, we knew that Aaron Rodgers was going to have a tough matchup to open the season on Thursday Night Football against the Chicago Bears, and he's going to draw a tough assignment this week as well. I just talked about it with Matt Ryan. Last week, Minnesota was able to hold Matt Ryan and that offense in Atlanta in check the entire game. You could see a lot of the same thing with Aaron Rodgers. Now, because it's Aaron Rodgers, I'm still going to put him in the top 10, but there is virtually, in my opinion, no upside outside of that this week. Maybe he's going to get you a touchdown or 2, but I am not expecting to see a ton outside of that. Minnesota is going to be on Aaron Rodgers, and in the past, Minnesota has gone to Aaron Rodgers a little bit. I mean, there was even the game, obviously a couple of years ago, where he fell down The tackle was made down on top of Aaron Rodgers. He broke his collarbone. So, he wants to play. He wants to get at Minnesota a little bit, but the defense is so good and they played so well last week. I expect them to do a lot of the same thing this week. Aaron Rodgers, again, a top 10 option for me, but virtually no upside with him this week. Baker Mayfield is going to get his shot on Monday Night Football. He's going to be in New York against the Jets. Sam Darnold, who's not in this, took a little bit of shot at him at the beginning of the episode. Sorry about that, Sam. No hard feelings. Like he's actually watching. He might be. You never know. Baker Mayfield, though, in that matchup on Monday Night Football, here at 11 for me. That the Jets defense is no joke. They're going to be much better. However, they are going to bounce back. Cleveland is going to bounce back. They are going to want to go out there and show everyone that they are no joke. A lot of people making fun of them after that last week in the media, in the league. The fans obviously really want this season. And who wants it more than that? The players. Obviously, the players want to go out there and win. So they are going to want to go out and prove a lot of people wrong. Now, trust me, they're hearing this. It's the Cleveland Browns. They've always heard this. They're hearing these things. But they got a little bit more moxie this year than they have had in years past with Odell Beckham Jr. and Baker Mayfield, Jarvis Landry even. So they're going to go out there and they're going to get theirs this week. This is a tough matchup for the Jets, especially considering they're going to be missing Darnold this week. Expect the defense to really take over for the Cleveland Browns. They're going to let Baker Mayfield roll this week. Put him in your lineups. I like what I see. A little bit like I said with Aaron Rodgers, a quarterback one. Definite quarterback one option this week. But with Baker Mayfield, I'm not seeing, again, like with Aaron Rodgers, not that ton of upside because I think that there is the opportunity that if they get out in front of the Jets that they could run the football with Nick Chubb. Didn't have a great week last week. Get back to that run game a little bit. Focus on Nick Chubb. Let Baker Mayfield do his thing. Very balanced offense this week. So you're seeing a little bit of a trend here this week. Another matchup, Ben Roethlisberger, Russell Wilson, back-to-back at 12 and 13. Two guys that are in the same matchup. And even at 15 and 16, Phillip Rivers and Matthew Stafford. Because with these four games where I have these quarterbacks back-to-back, I don't see any blowouts happening. I don't see either team having the clear advantage over another one. I believe these games are going to be very balanced. And if you're looking at it and thinking that's weird that I have all these guys right next to each other, it's because the Brees Goff, they have the most upside. Wentz and Ryan, they're kind of right that tier below them in terms of fantasy output. Roethlisberger and Wilson, and then Rivers and Stafford. So these teams, these quarterbacks that I got right next to each other is because I see these games kind of having that even flow where nobody's just going to go out and dominate the other one like we might see Tom Brady against the Miami Dolphins. A very steady flow. Phillip Rivers and Matthew Stafford, they're like that fourth pair down on the list because I just see that game being a little bit more defensive focused. The Chargers last week did a very good job against the Indianapolis Colts. They were able to really keep them in check with the exception of the 2 touchdowns to T.Y. Hilton. The Detroit Lions defense, for 3 quarters against Kyler Murray, they were able to keep him in check. So it could be a little bit of the same thing. And then Phillip Rivers also missing Hunter Henry, and it looks like he's going to be missing Mike Williams as well. So I originally didn't have him this far down. I had him a couple of spots above, but because I did bump him down a little bit, I didn't want to put him below Matthew Stafford because, again, like I mentioned, these quarterbacks are really on the same plane with this game flow this week, the defenses that they're facing, how the game's going to turn out in terms of game plan, things like that. So these two really, really close to each other, and then separating them right there, Josh Allen. Josh Allen, I've got just outside the top 12 this week. They're going to be facing the New York Giants, and obviously Dak Prescott had a huge week last week. But the inconsistencies for Allen at the start of the game against the Jets really bothered me. I said all offseason long, he's obviously got the arm talent, but we need to see him grow as a quarterback. Has he turned that corner yet? I don't know for sure. Not quite going to lock him in as a for sure QB1 until we've seen that. Coming in after that, Andy Dalton really surprised a lot of people last week. He looked really good, especially in the entire Bengals offense as a whole, even though, Joe Mixon banged up, missing 2 offensive linemen, AJ Green out. he was still able to go out there. John Ross, obviously a really nice week. Andy Dalton is a quarterback one, or just outside quarterback one territory for me. Derek Carr, we talked about. Jimmy Garoppolo, I anticipate him having a decent week as well. Not a great week last week, but it wasn't bad either. And again, you have to remember with Garoppolo, he missed almost all of last season with his injury. He's got to come back. He's got to shake off some of that rust. You got to give him a little bit of time. He's at Cincinnati this week. Dalton and Garoppolo, again, another game where it could be a steady flow back and forth. I like both of these quarterbacks as a start this week. Both of them could be in your lineup if you would like them to. It just depends on what other type of depth you have as well. But don't forget either with Dalton and Garoppolo, there's a really good chance that these guys might be on your waiver wire. So if you do have somebody like a Kyler Murray where you say, you know what, yeah, the inconsistencies, that bothers me a little bit. I don't know how well he's going to perform this week. You could grab a Garoppolo or a Dalton off the waiver wire right now. If you have an open spot, don't drop anybody of any value. Stream them this week. Go back to Murray next week. All right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the top 20 quarterbacks for week 2 of the fantasy football season. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Subs have been jumping. People are finding out about Headliner Nation, and they love what they hear. So Headliner Nation, all that appreciation to you. Thanks so much for coming into every episode, hitting that like button, sharing with your friends. I know you want to keep us as your secret weapon, but things are starting to grow. So get the word out a little bit more. Tell your friends, tell your family, get them here to the channel. This is a community. So get in here, be a part of Headliner Nation, subscribe today. If you do hit that subscribe button from watching this video, let me know in the comments below so I can personally welcome you, and all of Headliner Nation can welcome you as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll check you out on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners. Have a good one. Enjoy week 2.